You see, woo!
Good evening. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for being here,
It's
even
my
more
pleasure.
than that. And thank you for sharing your career with us. And it's our great honor to recognize that with the Mill Valley Film Festival Award. Brendan.
Woo!
The little bronze person.
This is gorgeous. I'm speechless, but that said, let me just talk for a bit. I'll keep my remarks short. Thanks again for being here. This means a lot to me. It's a wonderful affirmation to join you all here in the Bay Area, home of so many of the creative members in the force of our beloved film industry. I share this with you, and I'm grateful to you, and I hope that we can continue to turn out good films like the ones I've been lucky enough to be a part of. Thank you for that. One more quick thing. I just want to make a quick apology. A couple years back, I made a film called George of the Jungle. Okay, no, that's fine. So one part in George of the Jungle, George is going to rescue a parachutist who has become entangled on the Golden Gate Bridge. And my trailer was next to the Golden Gate Bridge, watching there was a parachutist and a mannequin dangling from it. And I wasn't the only one stopping to watch. All the traffic on both sides of the bridge was stopped to rubberneck for that because they took it seriously. I know they took it seriously because I happened to be watching Oprah at the time. They interrupted Oprah to report that a man had become entangled in a parachute on the Golden Gate Bridge. So, that said, my bad. Won't happen again. Thank you so much. Very, very, very much. This means a lot to me. Let's enjoy the show. You're likely going to see things tonight that may ask you to reevaluate how you feel by story's end from whichever life experience you're bringing in the door right now. I'm excited for you, and I look forward to speaking to you after the film. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Love you. I'm so excited. It's such a funny story.
Thank you.
Brendan, that's an incredible performance in every way. I mean, you're on screen all the time. Every scene, you own the screen. It's also one that you are basically a lot of times stationary, so you have to do a lot of showing the emotion through your face. Everything going through the warring emotions that you had. Was that a challenge to have to do that and not to overplay scenes? Because you never overplayed anything, but to show that and to get that genuine quality.
I think everything I needed to know was in the screenplay that Sam Hunter wrote, which was his stage play. He adapted it for the screen. It's a nice thing, compliment. I appreciate that, but you're really only as good as the people that you're working with. Sadie Sink is incredible. Hong Chow is incredible. Ty Simpkins brought his best game, and Samantha Morton, in her role, was in and out. There's something about Sam Morton. I think she might be missing a layer of some sort, because you can see through. She's so transparent. Everything is authentic with her. Challenge to be seated, because Charlie is not that mobile. I think it helped to have had rehearsed for 3 weeks before we shot frame 1. Darren was insistent. We taped out the floor in a rehearsal hall 1-to-1, used standby props, etc. And he declared, "We are a theater company," and we were not allowed to walk through the tape. We had to go around and in the entrance to come onto our de facto set, where we learned how to play the scenes. Because once we got on the build on the set, it was like submarine conditions for everyone. And this was shot in 2021. We were all there. We recall the existential crisis we lived under. And somehow, I think for the concern that we all had concerning protocols and safety measures to get us back to work, when I watch this, I see that additional level of care that we had to give one another. I think it shows in the performances. And that might be because we don't know if we're going to do this again. Years ago, I worked with Ian McKellen. It was a pleasure and a privilege on a film called Gods and Monsters, and in conversations, he said something that stayed with me. It was that you have to do this as if it's the very first time and the last time that you ever will. That resonated with me while we were making The Whale. We didn't know if there would be another time for us to do this at that point. Insofar as giving the performance go, I'm the father of 3 kids. My oldest has special needs, and what Charlie has lived through in the choices he's made, and that he has had fallen wholeheartedly in love, and there were calamitous effects from that. And we meet him when he's really, in the last week of time that he has very little time, and he wants to reconnect with his daughter because of what he considers to be his misdeed, and it's intensely emotional for him, for her, and I need only participate in help me out here, the voodoo alchemy of acting to think, how could you leave your kid behind to get that motor running in me? And I guess I could say I put it to work to play this part, to play Charlie.
And how did that come about? How did the evolution for you to get that role? Was it something that happened with, did Darren Aronofsky contact you? Had you seen the play before? Could you take us through that?
I'd not seen the play. I Mary Vernew had called, she's a casting director, who said, Darren's going to make a film, or he might make a film. He doesn't know yet, and he's interested in meeting you. Would you like to come? Answer, yes, yes, I would. We sat for an afternoon in his office in Chinatown in New York, and it was freezing, and we talked about things in common we had with one another. We became acquainted. He was a gentleman. He told me that and I had not read a screenplay. I really only had the brief on it, which was a man has been living alone. He has been harming himself by overeating, and he has 5 days left, very little time, and he wants to reconnect with his daughter, and this is his last and only shot at reconciliation, redemption, and we don't know if he's going to make it or not. And that's really all I needed to know, to want to be a part of a story like that, directed by a world-class visionary director like Darren. I got another call, we're going to stage a reading. So then I saw the script, my jaw dropped, my heart both sunk and leaped for joy and hope that maybe this is something that could come together. We met at St. Mark's Theater in the Village in Manhattan, New York, for a staged reading on music stands, 5 actors. Sadie was there, Sadie Sink was there, and a few other actors reading other parts. And I met Sam Hunter, the writer, whose play I did read before meeting him, in addition, of course, the screenplay, which I had sight of for maybe a day before we sat down to read it. And they put a camera on a tripod, we read it, and he said thank you. Darren said thank you to us, and that was that. We didn't know if or not we were going to make a film. And then March 2020 arrived, and we all put on our sweatpants. And I hope all your families are well, by the way, mine is. So didn't know if we had a movie or not until months later. I was working with Steven Soderbergh on a picture called No Sudden Move. Thanks. And that was we were shooting that in Detroit, and at that point the unions got together. They said, yep, we can do this, follow these protocols, etc. I'm sure lots of us in this room knows what those are, to get back to work. And I got a text from Darren, and typically it started the conversation right in the middle. He was like, okay, so I need you to get a body scan, and here's some books to read. And I was like, wait, slow down. Did you hire me? He's like, yes, you're hired. No, anyway, like I said, body scan, you gotta. And that began the journey to getting closer to shooting The Whale. There were plenty of Zoom calls with a partnership that we made with an organization called the Obesity Action Coalition, an online support system with tens of thousands of members in their stead. And we worked with Dr. Rachel Goldman, psychiatrist who specializes in eating disorders, treatment thereof. And I was given the opportunity to meet 8-10 people, I believe, who either lived with obesity, were not mobile, or some had bariatric procedures that saved their lives. Some were about to have a procedure. Some had lived their life, lost a great deal of weight, improved their health, but they gave me testimonial of their experience, and it was eye-opening and heartbreaking all at once to hear their stories. Something I noticed when I went back and looked at all my notes from having spoken to them was that they had this in common, and I'm no Democrat, I'm no psychiatrist or anything like that, but I noticed that early in their stories, early on, there was a figure, someone, an authority, most often a parent, sometimes a father, who spoke vindictively to them as children about their body weight. And it set in motion or planted a seed, but it set a pattern that stayed with them for the rest of their life. And I thought of something I saw a long time ago traveling through Bangkok. I was at a Buddha temple, a massive golden Buddha, and outside was a plaque, and it read, "Painful indeed is a vindictive speech." And I thought of this again. I put the two together, and I realized that words of consequences, what we say to one another, what we say to our children, how we speak with one another, it can do harm. And it made me feel like a movie's never going to solve anyone's problems, but it can definitely help possibly influence a culture, how we think, how we feel, and how we speak to one another. Maybe this could be one of those films that could change hearts and minds. So I felt a moral obligation of sorts to give everything that I had as if it was the first and last time I would ever do this again, to play Charlie. So I'm all out of moves.
Well, it's pretty amazing that, I mean, to think about you doing this role too, it had to take you to some dark places, obviously. When in character, you are feeling this, and it's a hard role. What did you do for yourself to be?
Well, there were moments of levity. I thought it was pretty funny when Charlie got his chair. He's like, "Yeah, hello." You know, that was me doing what I do, and Darren let me get away with it. Look, it's a stage play. Of course, there's little pressure valves over here and there, so we can crack it up at something that's pretty funny. Gosh, what did I do? Well, I was in the chair for 4 hours every morning. That became, for some reason, funny to me. To sit with Adrian Moreau, brilliant Adrian Moreau, who designed Charlie's body. He did the makeup, he created the character makeup in a virtual model from the scan. It skipped a process of compounding, it's hand sculpting to 3D print appliances, apparatus, so that it could be duplicated perfectly. And I say this because he had absolute domain over the size of pores, the placement of them, the shape of everything you saw. And the hard and fast rule about Charlie's makeup, his body, was that it obeys gravity and physics. So many films that we've seen up until now, and I really looked at as many as I could find where a bodysuit was worn by an actor or actress. And I don't know, to my eye, it's always been in service of the butt of a joke, or something mean-spirited, or it defies gravity. And this is not that. It was important that it was cumbersome. It was important that the apparatus was heavy for me to wear, to keep Charlie in his home base, in his couch, solidly seated that it really was an effort for him to simply stand up. Beth Edwards was the movement coach. She danced with Pilopolis Company for like 8 years. I think she knows what she's doing, and she's great. We watched everything from, and I like this part, the sumo wrestlers to Olympic deadlifters. That was all really helpful to just understand a whole different set of centers of gravity in a human body. And I think that way I could just concentrate on saying the words and connecting with the person I'm working with. In a way, most everything else was, I didn't have to act the gravity of the body that Charlie inhabits.
Because through your career, you've done a lot of things, physical things throughout. I think you look at George of the Jungle. You look at everything that you've done. The dance scenes that we saw, it's amazing stuff that we grew up with, or we saw, and just are iconic now. In this role, you're basically again just sort of confined into a space, and you're not used to that. To have to do that, was it hard for you to say, I want to be more physical in the sense for what you've done in the past?
I think that this counts as being in a physical performance. The way I had to approach it. When at the end of the day, when the apparatus came off, something peculiar was going on. I had vertigo. I don't know how to explain it other than the feeling you get when, say, you step off of a boat onto the dock. The first thing, you undulate. That was with me at the end of the day until I got into it again, over the weekend even. And even after we wrapped, seriously, for like a week and a half, I was still in motion. And I don't know, someone else explained this one to me, but I guess just what it means is I trained parts of me, muscles, all of it, in a way that I didn't know how to before. There was something about using your body that way that I didn't know that I could. And it also made me think, it takes an incredibly strong person to live inside of a body that size. And I mean that in more ways than one. and I know that for a fact. And I also, we're all friends here, I'll admit this, when the show was over, I had this really strange emotional experience in taking Charlie's body off for the last time. I don't know why. I think a combination of, like, some people can't do that. Some people never will. When people do that, I have deep respect for that accomplishment in their lives. I forgot to tell you something I meant to earlier about the OAC, the Obesity Action Coalition. I received the nicest letter from the man who runs it in the Canadian chapter. Leave it to the Canadians, I'm Canadian. He wrote to me about how meaningful the film was to him, and then he concluded by saying that he believed that this film has the ability, it just might save someone's life. It might.
Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. And that's the thing that I would like to say. Charlie's story, what could people do to help change the ending?
His story is told behind closed doors in a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere in North Idaho. How we relate to, perceive people who live with obesity, how we speak of them needs to change. I believe that in our manner of either looking the other way, accepting, or just not even registering how harmful vindictive speech can be, is the last domain of bigotry and prejudice. That I think there was, we go down the box and ticks off things that you just don't, you're not allowed to do that anymore. I think that this is one of them also. And possibly this film could help promote that. We can and we will do better. That would help people along the way. That's what I think.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much. It's an incredible performance, and you're doing tremendous work, and I just can't wait to see more things that you're going to be doing in the future.
Thanks for.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.